Hi, Gabrielle. Welcome to the Your Dose podcast.
Hi, Emily. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you for being here. I know it's took a bit of a while to get to this position, with me being in Australia and you being in the UK, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we could finally make it work. Um, for the listeners, do you want to give a little bit of an overview of like who you are, what you do,
Yeah.
and maybe what it is that made you want to come and talk on the podcast today?
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name's Gabrielle. I'm from the UK. I'm originally from a town called Darwin, which is in Lancashire. It's in between Bolton and Blackburn. I don't know whether you've ever heard of it, probably not. I now live in Manchester. I actually went travelling in Australia for 3 years.
Oh wow, you did.
Yeah. So I actually didn't do too much traveling, but I lived in Sydney and I lived
Oh,
in Melbourne.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and I got back after COVID. I got back in 2020 and then I moved to Manchester. So I live in Manchester now in an apartment with my boyfriend and I work as an office manager for a property company.
So, how did you feel moving back from Sydney? Were you on the working holiday visa?
I was for 2 years, so I did my farm work. I
Yeah.
did that in a place called Atherton near Cairns. So I worked on a
Wow.
blueberry farm, and then I lived in and worked in Sydney for a year, and then I was in Melbourne for 2 years. But I ended up on a student visa, and it was a lot of money, and I didn't really have the
Mm,
opportunity to stay. So that's why I ended up coming home and I miss my family as well. But yeah, it was tough, especially because it was like during COVID and I got back. I had to move back in with my parents. I didn't have
yeah.
a job for months. I couldn't get a job. So yeah, that was tough. But I soon, I soon like reestablished myself here. I soon got back into living in the UK quite quickly, actually. I soon adapted.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big adaptation, isn't it? 'Cause it's such a different lifestyle out here.
No, I know. I literally, some of my friends are still over there, and when I see their like social media posts, I get so jealous because
Jealous.
I feel like it's just like a luxury way of life in
Yeah.
Australia. Like everything's so much nicer, but I do appreciate living in the UK as well. I've got to get in that mindset of appreciating the UK as well.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you'd
exactly.
just be miserable. But
You're
there
just
is some good
miserable.
things over here.
Yeah, there is for sure. So,
Um,
yeah, so thank you for sharing that. But yeah, I guess what is it that made you want to come and chat on here today?
So the reason that I've come on is I just wanted to share my story. And basically, at the age of 11, something happened in my life and it caused something in my head to snap. And from that point onwards, throughout all my teens and all my 20s, I have suffered with long-term anxiety and depression. Also, during that time, I've had an extreme lack of self-love. And basically, for the last 20 years, from the age of 11 till 30, I have just been so miserable in life, so lost. And from that lack of self love, I've basically just devised numerous ways to harm myself throughout these 20
Mm.
years. So I've suffered with an eating disorder, and I had that for 7 years. I had anorexia and bulimia. I also developed a skin picking disorder, and I've actually hospitalised myself twice in recent years with that
Wow.
disorder. I picked my skin that bad that I ended up in hospital. Um, I've also abused alcohol. That's one of the ways that I harm myself. And also, I've endured some really toxic relationships. When I hit 30, I had a huge rock bottom in one of these relationships with a narcissist. Something really messed up happened. But that was the catalyst that changed everything for me. And I hit rock bottom. I had some huge epiphanies about my life. And in recent years, I've got super serious about healing myself. I realized that I was the problem and I needed to commit to making some serious changes in my life. And I've completely transformed my life.
Wow.
I could never find love before. I could never find a healthy relationship. I was failing in my career. Everything was going wrong in my life. Just I was just miserable, so lost. I didn't know my purpose. I never had any peace in my life. I was just constantly tormented by the voice in my head. But I've completely turned things around, especially since last October. I've committed to like a daily challenge every day that included simple practices. And now I just feel so much better. And I just want to share my story because I can remember I was like that for 20 years with anxiety and depression. And I'd resigned myself to feeling like this is never going to change. This is just who I
Mm.
am. I'm doomed to feel like this for the rest of my life. But things can change. If you make changes and you take action, things can change. So I just want to give people hope. I want to inspire people. And I want to raise awareness as well about things, disorders like skin picking disorder, because I don't see it talked about too much. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
why I've come on here.
well, I'm so glad you're here and thank you for sharing all of that. There's lots of questions around what you've spoken about. Obviously, I'd really love to dive into what it is that you've done to transform your life, but I think it'd be really interesting first to kind of go back a little bit, um, and maybe to talk about the skin picking disorder and
Yeah,
where that really originated from, how it began, what it might have looked like in its infancy, and
yeah.
then what it might have looked like on those like worst days where you were said that you were literally were hospitalized.
Yeah, so I think everything was going fine for me up until the age of 11, and some kids made some comments about my appearance, and
Okay.
that caused something to snap in my head. And from that point, that is when that narrative started taking hold in my head, started beating me down, started telling me, you're not good enough, you're ugly. I felt really ugly. I think when you're a child, you're playing with your friends and that, and up until a certain point you're not really conscious of how you look and how you're different compared to other kids. But those comments, they just affected me really badly, and from that point, like I said, something snapped in my head. That's when I got body dysmorphia, and I just became obsessed with my physical appearance. And
Mm.
I just felt like I needed to change certain parts of my body, and I was ugly and I needed to be prettier. And I let that narrative play out in my head, and that caused me to feel anxious. It caused me to feel down, and that caused me to pick my skin. Skin picking disorder is founded on anxiety. So I think I felt so crap about myself that when I got acne when I was younger, I wouldn't even say my acne was that bad, but I got a few spots on my face. And I think looking back, it was a stress release for me. I felt rubbish. I had anxiety and depression. So picking my skin was like some form of stress release. So yeah, it
Mm.
started at that age around 11. And obviously it's common for kids to get spots and to pick their skin, but I picked my skin to an extreme extent. So I can remember coming home from school and spending hours in front of the mirror and like picking my skin to the point where I had scabs on my face. Um, this I'm ashamed to admit this, and it makes me feel like gross admitting it, but like I would stab my spots with like needles to try and get the stuff out.
Mm.
Obviously you should never be doing stuff like that. Like you can get infections. But that carried on really throughout my teens, throughout my 20s. I've now literally got scars all over my body from this disorder. I've got scars on my
Wow.
face, I've got scars on my chest, my shoulders, my back, my legs, absolutely everywhere. They have healed and now they're just little white marks, but I do notice them. And every time I see them, it reminds me of what I've done to myself.
Mm.
But to be honest, the first incident where I got hospitalized, That was when I was in Australia. So
Really?
yeah. So it's been in recent years. My skin picking started at 11, but it's only been in the last 5 years that I ended up hospitalized. So when I was in Australia, I was on the farm doing my farm work, and I got a spot on the side of my face here, and I squeezed it that bad that I ended up with an abscess. So literally from the front, my face looked deformed because there was this huge lump here. And I can remember I showed it to my friend one day, and she was like, Gabs, you need to go to the hospital. Like, this is really bad. And yeah, I went to the hospital. They said I had an abscess. They said it needed draining immediately. And I can remember the doctors just like pinning me down and draining this abscess. And
Yeah.
I was absolutely heartbroken. And I can remember I was just crying my eyes out. And I can remember just saying, I can't believe this has happened. Like, how have I done this to myself? Like, I can remember even now, I think, like, what's wrong with me? Like, I look round and I think other girls aren't doing this to themselves. Why am I so messed up? Why am I doing this? And to be honest, if someone had asked me even a few years ago, do you self harm? I'd have said no, because I thought self harm was literally just taking, I don't know, a razor or something to your wrists. So I'd have been like, no, I don't self harm. But what
Mm,
I've realized is I do self harm. I've self harmed in so many ways, like the skin picking, alcohol, putting myself in situations in relationships where I'm really suffering with people.
yeah,
My eating disorder, that's a form of self harm.
absolutely.
So yeah, that happened in Australia, and I ended up with a hole on the side of my face. I had to go
Wow.
back to the hospital and get it redressed for weeks. Thankfully, it healed well, and it's just a little like scar about that big, just a little
Mm,
line. But I vowed to myself, I was like, God, that was really bad. That's never happening again. But then move forward to coming back from Australia during COVID. I was at home living with my parents. I didn't have a job. I was really stressed. The gym was closing down, and the gym's like my safe space. That was getting me through COVID, being able to go to the gym. And literally one day I felt a lump on the back of my thigh, on the back of my leg, and I did the same again. I squeezed it and squeezed it and squeezed it, and before I knew it, it had turned into an abscess again. And I was like, oh my God, okay, this has happened. Just don't touch it, just leave it. But that one actually spread down my leg. I didn't
wow.
realize abscesses could spread, but I ended up with 3 abscesses down my leg. And the last abscess that I got, it was that bad. It was purple, like I could barely walk. And it was
Mm,
New Year's Day of 2021. I had to ring 111, and I told them about my situation, and they said, come to the hospital now. We're going to get you a bed. Like, this needs to be monitored, because basically you could end up with septicemia
that's it. Yeah,
and
that's what I was
die.
thinking.
So I went to the hospital, and literally I spent the first 4 days of 2021 in a hospital bed hooked up to a drip. Um, and I just couldn't believe it had happened again. I could not believe I'd done it to myself again. But to be honest, at the time, I just had to block it out of my mind. I couldn't I think it's like something to do with your brain, and it's like a coping mechanism when you're in shock. I couldn't dwell on what I'd done because it was so painful, and so I felt so ashamed. I couldn't dwell on it too much. I just had to detach from it to get me through that. Because I just didn't want to, yeah, I just didn't want to catastrophize the situation and let it make me feel even worse. I just knew that I had to get through it. But literally, with these skin picking episodes, I could have killed myself. I can remember in Australia, that one on the side of my face, I went to see a doctor, and he was like, you were really lucky, you know. He said, if you have abscesses on your head, if that gets into your bloodstream, that will go straight to your brain. And he's like, you can end up with brain damage or you can die. And I was just
Wow.
like, oh my God. I was just like, what is wrong with me?
And did your parents know what was going on?
No, do you know what? To be honest, to this day, I've never even opened up to my parents about my skin picking disorder.
Why do you
Uh,
think that is?
I think I feel ashamed about it. I just feel, yeah, I feel ashamed. Like now I try and not have too much shame because I know beating down on myself for that what could end up causing me to pick my skin again.
Mm,
I cannot let that narrative in my head play out. That's the key critical thing that I've realized over these years. The narrative that plays in your mind will literally determine everything. So I cannot beat myself down too much. Sometimes I catch myself for a second, like I'll see my scars and I'll be like, oh my God, Gabrielle, why did you do that to yourself? Why can't you just be like the normal girls out there? But then I'm like, Gabrielle, stop. Just stop it with that right now. And I'll stop myself. And if I'm feeling anxious, I'll find a way to soothe myself, like I'll do my meditation or something like that. Um, but yeah, the only people I've told about my skin picking disorder is my sister, my best friend, and obviously I've started sharing it online now, but I've never had that conversation with my mum and dad. When I got admitted to hospital, they never. I just said I had an abscess on my leg, and they never asked too much more about it. I never told them that I had three. I just told them I had one. So yeah,
and you mentioned a little bit about your body dysmorphia
yeah,
originally. How did that kind of play out? I mean, obviously, an eating disorder is kind of comorbid with
yeah,
body dysmorphia as
yeah,
well. But did you ever go to any extremes of like trying to change things about yourself or because this is very common, isn't it, with like with young girls with body
yeah,
dysmorphia, and we have so much
yeah,
access. And I know myself, and I don't think I've speak openly about this enough, but definitely like with social media and even living where I'm living in Bondi now. I don't know, you probably spent time in Bondi. Like, it has you looking at yourself in a completely new light, and
yeah,
it's like we have access to so many things now where we can change ourselves.
yeah,
Um, and it's finding that balance between maybe making small tweaks to like spending thousands and thousands of pounds to try and change the way that you look.
yeah. Yeah, so it's played out in a massive way, to be honest, in my life. When I look back now, I realize my body dysmorphia, I've tried to change myself in numerous ways. So I've had
Mm.
plastic surgery. I had a boob job when I was at uni,
Wow,
and
yeah.
I didn't need that boob job. Literally, I just wanted to get breast implants because I could afford it. And to be honest, I was attention seeking.
Yeah.
What I've realized with my story is when I was feeling miserable, when I had anxiety, when I was depressed, I had a void inside of me and I was looking externally to fix that. And one of the ways that I looked externally was to be prettier, I thought if I was beautiful, if I could just make myself feel beautiful, that would be the answer to all my problems. But it wasn't. And along the way, I've done stuff to myself. So I've had a boob job, I've had fillers, I've had Botox, I've had other
Yeah.
surgeries as well. But they never filled that void. They never came close to filling that void. It gave me a temporary high. It was like a dopamine hit. But that void inside of me, it just grew and grew and grew. So yeah, I had my boob job and didn't need that boob job. I was very skinny at the time because I was still suffering with my eating disorder. If I'd just had a bit more weight on me, I definitely wouldn't have needed a boob job. But my boobs were small, but yeah, there was nothing wrong with them. But I was just impulsive and I was addicted to getting attention. As embarrassing as that sounds, if I'm
No,
completely
it's not.
honest, I when I look back in the height of my anorexia when I was 17 and I was tiny, I lived for going out at the weekends. I'd go out Monday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'd go out. I'd get absolutely obliterated, go out in the tiniest outfits, and I was just seeking attention off guys. That's again, that's looking externally. That's what I thought would make me feel better when I was suffering with my anxiety and depression. But at that stage in my life, I was just coping the best I could. You've got to think, I'm 35 now. When I was 17, people didn't really speak about anxiety and
Yeah.
depression. I didn't have anywhere to turn. So I was just coping the best I could. That was one of my coping mechanisms, looking externally, trying to make myself beautiful and getting attention off people.
Yeah. And I think that's so normal. And I think, most when you look at social media and we all post pictures. I mean, I know that I do it from time to time. I post a picture on
Yeah,
Instagram to get validation and check how many
yeah,
likes I've got. I think we'd
yeah,
be lying if we said we didn't do that. Like, Instagram ultimately is a tool where you can gain validation for posting
yeah,
pictures of the way that you look. But I think it's really important that we talk about this, especially as females, because it's the younger generation that will suffer the most because it's only going to get worse, with filters on Instagram, and you can literally just so easily access um, anything to change your body. Like, I mean, in Australia, you can get really cheap, like fat dissolving treatments, fillers, like all of these things.
yeah,
And then, like you said, the problem is that you get that work done. And then after that, you feel empty, and then you go and do it again. And then you're just constantly chasing that high.
yeah.
Do you remember, was there like one point when you went and got treatment that you were just like, no, I can't keep doing this anymore?
I think, to be honest, I notice sometimes when I feel down, my default was to book in to get filler. If I felt down, I was like, oh, I need to pick me up. I'll go and get filler. But I'd always get a bad feeling about it. Even going for the appointment, I'd be like, why are you doing this? Like, I just had a bad feeling about it. I've actually, the last time I got filler was actually a couple of years ago. So I'm not in any rush to get any more filler, to be honest. And I
Yeah.
actually had my breast implants removed.
Oh, wow.
So when I was 33, 2 years ago, I decided to get them removed. I looked online and I saw some information coming up about breast implants causing cancers. The ones that
Wow.
I actually had implanted were banned worldwide for causing cancer. Some women have died from this cancer.
Wow.
There's also breast implant illness. Breast implants
Yeah.
are giving people autoimmune diseases. It took me 4 years to pluck up the courage to get my
To
breast
get them out.
implants out because I was so concerned about how I would look. Because there was a risk that I could have been deformed. I was bothered about these scars that I'd have. But in the end, I was like, you know what, Gabrielle, this is insanity. You cannot put vanity before your health. You've got
Yeah.
to prioritize your health because it was making me anxious. Like I'd try and put it to the back of my mind about these cancers and stuff, but I
Yeah.
just couldn't. So in the end, I got them explanted, and honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done. I'm so
Best decision
proud of
you made.
myself. I feel like that was a step in the right direction, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. Like, and so you hear so many horror stories, don't you, of girls that go to Turkey and get like bum
Yeah,
implants or
yeah.
whatever, like poor girls that go and then just end up completely ruined for the rest of their life. And so
I
it's like
know.
it's trying, like you said, it's choosing vanity over your health, and we've all been there. Like I've
Yeah,
seen it, I think as females we all go through it. Whether, I mean, I had an eating disorder. I was choosing it. What It wasn't completely vanity. Like it was. I mean, I was very young at the time, but yeah, there's still that element of aesthetic and wanting to look a certain way and choosing being skinny over actually being healthy, which is
yeah,
the most important thing. But moving on a little bit from that, because I want to touch on, you mentioned about narcissistic relationships.
yeah,
Um, what might a narcissistic relationship look like? Because I think a lot of people can end up in narcissistic relationships and not actually know what signs to look for?
Yeah. So yeah, the key signs for me, the number one sign I would say is a lack of empathy. So ways that you can pick up on that. I with my ex, I picked up on that. We'd just be having conversations and his views in conversations, I could tell that he lacked empathy. He wasn't able to put himself in other people's shoes and feel what they might be feeling.
Mm,
Um, what else? Another sign could also, it's not just in conversations with the empathy, it's empathy towards you as well. So one of the key things I notice in the relationship, if he'd acted out in any way and I had a bit of an issue with his behavior, I'd try and bring it up in a conversation. I'd be like, do you know what I mean? I just wanted to have a peaceful adult conversation, like, look, this has come up, you've
mm,
hurt me, can we talk about this? But he would literally tell me to shut up. He would literally shout at me, say, shut up, we're not speaking about this. And then he would proceed to ignore me for like the whole day. So he'd give me the silent treatment. So he was
wow.
punishing me. That's another thing as well. They cannot take any form of criticism because their ego is so fragile. They've got such a big
Mm,
ego, but it's so fragile. You merely bringing up a conversation like, oh, do you know what? I don't like that tone that you were speaking into me. They can't stand it. So they'll just shut you down and they'll punish you. And that was so painful. Like silent treatment is so, so painful. And it makes you feel crazy because I was like, I just wanted to speak about this. And he was like, I don't want to argue. I was like, I don't want to argue. I just want to have a conversation. Like,
I can't
please.
remember what it was. I was listening to something recently. It was a podcast, and it was about how to have healthy relationships.
Yeah,
And it was Mel Robbins actually, and she was speaking about all the different things that we can do, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something around healthy relationships. And she spoke about the silent treatment, and she was like, it is one of the absolute worst things that you can do to someone. Like, you are literally abandoning someone in that moment, and you're like, you're playing games and you're not giving any insight into what that person's done, or like it's literally you're just abandoning that person in that moment
yeah,
or that period of time. And it's actually really cruel, and I think a lot of people do it to play games. um
definitely.
Whether it's not even if it's a narcissistic relationship, like sometimes people will just be like, oh, I'm just not gonna like message him for like
Yeah.
X amount of days, he's annoyed me, but like that person's then left wondering like, what have I done? Like, is that person
No, I
okay? You
know.
know?
I know. It's so immature. I think it's so pathetic and it's so painful. I can remember one day I was at work. So this was when I was working in Australia and I felt physically sick because he was ignoring me. Like I couldn't
Mm,
concentrate on my job. I felt that pained. And it's just awful. So yeah, the narcissist, they'll punish you. So silent treatment, or he'd withdraw affection as well. He knew that I liked affection, like cuddles and stuff. He'd withdraw that, completely ignore me. Empathy, they don't have empathy. So do you mean giving you silent treatment? That's really cruel. They've
mm,
not got the capability to put themselves in your shoes and feel how you're feeling and what you're thinking. They don't care. They don't give a damn. Also, a sign of a narcissist, they'll criticize you. So this might be in subtle ways or it might be in blatant, obvious ways. But for example, my ex, he slowly eroded my confidence and just, he made me feel like I repulsed him, to be honest. A couple of examples, if I ever had like a pimple, a spot on my face, he'd like be like, oh, what's that on your face? And I'd be like, oh, it's just a spot. And then I can remember one time
wow.
we were just like messing about, like play fighting, whatever. And I squashed my face against the carpet. I just had my face, I was led down. And he was like, oh, he was like, don't ever pull that face again. And I can remember thinking, I was just like, what, what the F? Do you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
But I just felt like I repulsed him.
that's
And then,
awful.
and then I can remember one day I got in his car and we were just going to his to chill, and I just had my hair scraped up in a messy bun. And he looked at me and he was like, I really don't like your hair like that. And I was like, okay, like I'm just like we're just chilling at yours, like but I can remember like this was making me feel like I repulsed him. I felt like I wasn't good enough for him. And your partner should never be making you feel like that.
No.
But they're
Uh,
slowly wearing you down. They're creating this dynamic. The narcissist always needs to feel like they're the best and they're above
mhm.
you. And they want you to be below them because then you're always scrambling for the love, crumbs of love and attention that they're giving you. You're always putting them up on a pedestal and thinking how wonderful they are and that you're not good enough for them. Do you know what I mean? And you're unlikely to leave them if you're below them as well, because you think, oh God, I'm not going to get anyone else. Like,
Yeah.
look at me, I'm repulsive. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So those
Yeah.
are some of the key signs. Also, another sign, the reason that a narcissist is how they are is because they've been abandoned in some way as a child.
Mm,
9 times out of 10, this is the case, maybe not always. So a parent has either left them. My narcissistic ex, he was abandoned by his father as a baby, and that pain of being abandoned is what causes them to be a narcissist, because they shut down their feelings and emotions. So they shut down the ability to empathize, and that's what makes them a narcissist. So if a parent, if you're going out with someone, if they've been abandoned as a child, maybe the parent hasn't even left the household, but they just had they were emotionally abandoned. The parent was there,
mhm.
but maybe the parent was always at work. That's a sign as well that maybe they could be a narcissist, but not always. Because, for example, my mum, she had a terrible upbringing. She was Her mother left her when she was very young, and her father was abusive, didn't tend to her emotions and needs. But my mum is the kindest, most empathetic person ever. So it's not always
Yeah.
the case. Do you mean I don't want to say, oh, if someone's abandoned as a child, they're a narcissist? No, but when you take that characteristic and then you put it against, oh, have they got empathy? Are they criticizing me? It's all these things adding up, you see, that make the narcissist.
So how did you break free from that relationship?
So this is the rock bottom that I had.
Okay.
So my mental health was really bad. And like I said, I looked externally to resolve my issues. So looking to be beautiful, looking for validation. So another thought, that idea that I came up with, oh, if I get in a relationship, this is going to make me happy. Someone who comes along who loves me, that's what's going to be the answer to my problems. That's going to make me happy. So I met my ex. We were together for 10 months. Very early on, the red flags came up. But because I had no self love, and because I didn't have a life that I wanted to fall back on, I was miserable in my job. I was miserable just as a
Yeah.
person. So I clung on to him, even when the red flags were coming up, huge red flags. He couldn't meet my needs. He was making me miserable.
Mm,
At night, I was falling asleep next to him with tears down my face because I was so upset. But I hung on because I was desperate for love. But the ironic thing is, he wasn't really giving me any love. But I just, because I'd found someone and I'd been single for so long, even though the relationship was so terrible, I was like, I can't let this go. There's no way I'm going back to being by myself.
it's
I
a
can't,
trauma bond, isn't it, really?
yeah, I can't, even though it was just, I was so miserable, but I was like, I can't let this go. I've got to keep him no matter what he does. So in the end, it was really, really bad. And I can remember just having this overwhelming feeling, and I was coming out with it on voice notes to my friends. And I was like, I feel like he's capable of doing terrible things and having no guilt for it, having no remorse. I feel like he's capable of being really deceitful. And I started constantly stalking his social media, going into his messages on his laptop. And it's like I was looking for something.
Yeah.
But do you mean looking in your partner's messages every day? That's not normal. Like,
No.
you need to end that relationship. It was making me ill. It was making me so anxious, but I couldn't stop looking. And then one morning he went to golf, and as soon as he'd left, I went straight onto his laptop. And usually I'd go onto his Instagram and his Facebook, but this time I went onto the iMessages icon at the bottom of the screen. And I went in there and I found this message that he'd sent a month before. And it said, "Oh, hi, are you available for an hour?" And I read the message and I was like, "What's this?" And I thought, oh, maybe he's asking for an hour golf lesson, someone's time. And anyway, I put the number in Google and this prostitute's profile came up with a message of the prostitute. And I'd found what I'd been looking for. I knew there was something wrong. It was
Mm.
tormenting me, like in my soul. I was like, there's something about this guy. There's something he's keeping from me. And
Yeah.
anyway, I went back through the messages. He'd been messaging loads of prostitutes before he met
Oh,
me. Um, and yeah, so that day I was due to meet my cousin because my cousin also lives in Melbourne. I rang him hysterical on the phone. He thought I'd been attacked. I was that hysterical. He was like, "Pack your stuff now." And he's like, "You're coming to live with me." So packed all my belongings up. This was at 7 in the morning. I had to wait for my ex to come back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was stewing all day. And then I confronted him, but I kept so calm because I knew if I was like aggressive, I knew if I smashed up the apartment, like I wanted to burn his clothes. I wanted to throw his clothes off the balcony and burn them. I wanted to smash the whole apartment up. But I knew if I did that, he wouldn't speak to me. I knew if I
mm.
said to him, "Oh, you're disgusting," blah, 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 I wanted to understand how I got to this point in my life and what was going on with him. So, yeah, I confronted him. I was very calm and he opened up. He told me basically he had a sex addiction, no, a porn addiction he had. He never actually wanted to have sex with me. That was one of the issues. I used to always feel rejected, but it's because he was into porn. He got all his satisfaction from
Wow.
porn. But then it had obviously progressed into seeing prostitutes as well. But that message that he'd sent to the prostitute, he'd sent it in January, and it was February at the time that I found it. And it was the day before we were due to go to Bali and meet his mum and sister for the first time. He didn't actually meet up with the prostitute because she said to him on the message, she said, "Oh, I'm not in Melbourne at the minute." He was like, "Oh, when are you next back?" And she was like, "Blah, blah, blah." He was like, "Oh, maybe catch you then." So he didn't go and meet up with her. And he says he never met up with prostitutes while he was with me. And I don't believe he did, to be honest, but I think he was about to. I think that was the start of it. So I just caught it. So that's how that relationship ended. That, do you know what I mean? It got to that point, such a catastrophic ending. I'd endured so much pain and suffering. I put myself through that. I see that as a form of self harm. I let
Yeah.
myself suffer so much. So that's how that ended. But I just want that to be a lesson to people when the red flags start coming up. Take
Just leave.
note and end the relationship. Like now, I would never ever put myself through that. But that's because I know how to love myself now. I know what self love is.
So, what does self-love look like for you now?
So I can remember when I was suffering with my mental health and my life weren't going right, I'd look online and everyone's like, "You need to learn to love yourself." And I was like, oh God, that bloody spiritual woo woo mystical concept. I was like, oh, I do love myself. I thought, I exercise 4 times a week and I eat healthy. That's loving myself. And I think I'm an all right person. But now when I look back, I realize I was doing so many other things to myself that cancelled out any positive effects from the exercise or healthy eating. Do you know what I mean? I was allowing a narrative in my mind to beat me down every day. That's not self love.
Mm.
So now when I think about self love, sorry, I've just written some notes to remind me. For me now, self love, it's not a woo woo concept. Self love is simple actions taken every day that safeguard my well-being, that allow me to thrive mentally and physically. So, number one, it's not allowing that negative narrative to play out in my head every day. That is absolutely critical. That's changed everything for me. So, part of that, one thing that I've realized, if you want to get rid of that narrative, you need to calm yourself, you need to calm your body. When I started, now I do a daily routine that allows me to thrive. So every day I focus on calming my body. Every morning I do breath work. I only do 3 rounds of breath work. It only takes me like 5 minutes. I do 20 minutes of meditation. That calms my body and it calms my mind. When I say calming my mind, when you're anxious and depressed, you've got loads of thoughts, your
Mm,
thoughts are negative, and you're believing every single thought that comes into your head, and you're letting it pull you down into that catastrophizing spiral. When I calm my body with this daily routine, I have less thoughts in general. The thoughts that I am having are more positive, and I've moved into this position now where I'm the observer of my thoughts. I realize I'm not my thoughts. So when that narrative comes up, that's not me. I don't have to believe every single thing that it tells me. I don't have to do what it tells me to do. Because if I do what it tells me, that involves sabotaging my life and hurting myself.
mm.
So calming my body has been an absolute game changer to me. I've moved into the observing role. So when the negative thoughts do come up now, I'm like, there it is. There's my depression. I know that it's going to, with your mind, these thoughts come and go. It's probably because I'm tired now, so I still get negative thoughts in the evenings usually, like after work. Not every day, but sometimes they'll come. But it's like, Gabrielle, you're tired. Get an early night, go to bed, and see how you feel in the morning, and I'm fine. Whereas in
Isn't
the
that
past,
really interesting? Because it's
yeah,
like, it's more about people often think that they've got like bad mental health. But yeah, and I've spoke about this a few times on my podcast, but and I know this from my personal experience. It's like, well, you're drinking on a weekend, you're not getting good sleep,
yeah,
you're not exercising, you're not eating well. Of course you're gonna feel like shit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
of course you are. So
yeah,
maybe you should be getting 8 hours of sleep. Maybe you should stop drinking alcohol
yeah,
every weekend.
yeah,
And it's like it's important that you've said this because it's sometimes just about being aware of what am I doing in my life on a day-to-day basis, and that's why habit tracking's good, because you can
yeah,
track. It's like, right, so on this day I had like 2 liters of water, um woke up early, meditated, did my exercise, blah 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 blah, journaled, and then the next day I didn't get my 8 hours of sleep, didn't meditate, and you write in your journal that you feel like shit. And it's like over time, then you start looking back
yeah,
and you're like, oh, well, it makes sense because I didn't get this and
yeah.
didn't get my sleep and everything else. So yeah, I think that's really important, and I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, literally, I wasn't looking after myself before. I wasn't setting myself up to thrive. I was doing destructive things. I mean, like maybe I was waking up, going straight onto social media, scrolling on people's pages that just make me feel like crap, letting this narrative play out, doing exactly what it tells me to do, hating myself. So now I've got this routine. And you mean it takes discipline? Not every morning I want to wake up and do this meditation and breath work, but I'm taking action. I've realized throughout all these years when I was feeling crap and nothing changed. I always used to think, you know what, with time, I'm going to grow out of this anxiety and depression. Someone's going to come along and change everything for me. That didn't happen. It only got worse. It's only
Mm.
this last year when I was like, you know what? I'm sick of anxiety and depression having this hold over me. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to take action. And I've made these changes and it's changed my life. And it's not been that hard. And my daily routine, it doesn't take that long. It probably takes me half an hour, but it's been absolutely, it's transformed my life. Absolutely transformed my life.
Is there anything else that you're doing, obviously? And I can really resonate with what you're saying because I know how powerful meditation is, and I'm really trying to get back into it again, especially like first thing in the morning. Um, But are there any other habits that you're doing that might be like different to the norm? You know, obviously we know exercise makes us feel good. We
Yeah.
know that eating good makes us feel good. We know not drinking. But is there anything else that you think's quite unique that you've done?
I wouldn't say so, to be honest. My daily routine, it looks like me getting up, not going on my
Yeah.
phone first thing. I don't go on a
Really
phone.
important, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I don't go on my phone for the first hour in the morning and the last hour at night, unless it's just like a quick WhatsApp message. But I definitely do not go on social media for the first hour in the morning and the last hour before I go to bed. Definitely not. Wake up, do my breath work, do my meditation, do my exercise. So exercise 4 times a week for an hour. Eat healthy. One thing I will say though, exercising and healthy eating alone could not resolve my bad mental health. And
Yeah.
what I've realised is it's because it couldn't change that narrative in my head.
Yeah.
Only calming my body with the breath work and meditation, and also doing journaling. I do journaling every day. I only do one A5 page. It takes me 5 minutes. Like, there's no excuses not to do it. Journaling really helped me with that narrative as well in my head, because I just feel like it's feeding you a positive narrative every day. And with time, committing to that every day, that goes into your conscious, your subconscious, and that help promotes this feeling of positivity within you. So do my journaling. Sometimes I was doing cold showers every day. I don't do that every day now. I actually listened to one of your podcasts, and I
Mm,
heard you speak about the cold water and how it might not necessarily be good for ladies to do that all the time.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, don't do that all the time. I have signed up to this. There's a place in Manchester called Fix, and they do saunas and cold water baths. I do
Yeah.
do that maybe twice a month now. I do love the sauna, absolutely love it. But yeah, to be honest, I don't do anything unique. It's just these simple things that everyone talks about, but not a lot of people will commit to it, so they won't see the
Yeah.
change.
And I think you're so right. And even listening to you is inspired me to like tomorrow to keep doing it because I like will do it for a few days. I'll have the best day. When I wake up early, I meditate, I do my journaling, or, you know, it's like it's always the best days. And then and it's always the days that I don't do it that I just feel chaotic and my mind's so busy with stuff. And like, I feel like I never really get anything done.
Yeah,
Um, and you're so right. Like it is actually simple. And it doesn't have
yeah.
to be 20 minutes a day. The meditation I do is 20 minutes a day. It was a meditation that I learned in Australia actually called Vedic meditation. But you can literally just do a 5 minute meditation on YouTube. Um is your breath work guided or do you just do
Do
it
you know
yourself?
what I did do? So there's a Wim Hof breath work on YouTube. It's 10 minutes. Sometimes I do that, but sometimes literally all I do is take 10 breaths, 4 seconds in, maybe a 4 second hold, 4 seconds out, and do 3 rounds of that. So I do 30 breaths. That's all I do every single morning. It takes me like 5 minutes. And yeah, it's just completely changed my life. But I stick to it every single day. Sometimes, like even when I've been on holiday, I've stuck to it. Even on Christmas Day, I did it. To be honest,
That's amazing.
this last holiday I went on, I actually didn't do it. I think I might have done a couple of meditations, but what I've realised with me, I had 20 years of being quite unwell with depression, anxiety. So I've got to stick to this every day. And it's like people who've been an alcoholic or like addicted to drugs, they go on that 12-step program and they've got to commit to something every day to keep them on track. And I've noticed I've got to commit to this probably for the rest of my life, but I don't care because it doesn't take long for me to do it.
No.
It's not taking up loads of my time. And most of the time I enjoy doing it, but I've realized because I was so entrenched in those bad patterns, toxic patterns in my head of behavior, this is something I've got to stick to. Otherwise, I can start to feel it creeping in again. But it's no bother for me to do it. Like now, I'm
No.
just reaping the rewards of it. There's been such big changes in my life. So there's no way I'm ever going to go back now. Absolutely no way.
That's
Um,
amazing.
Another key thing that I've done as well is just nearly completely giving up alcohol. That was a massive game changer for me because, like I said, when I look back, I abused alcohol. Like
Yeah.
I was a binge drinker, but to an extreme extent. So giving up alcohol, I think doing this stuff like calming my body, calming my mind, that's allowed me to get in touch with my intuition. And now my intuition, it speaks to me all the time. And aligning to my intuition, it told me, like, Gabrielle, alcohol doesn't agree with you.
Mm,
So instead of ignoring my intuition, these days I'm listening to it and I'm doing what my intuition's telling me to do. And that's causing my life to go in the right direction. But giving up alcohol, it was quite a sacrifice, to be honest, because do you know what I mean? That's all I've been used to, going out, socializing, drinking. But honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever done, giving up alcohol. I sometimes probably have a couple of drinks, 5 drinks a year. I'm not completely teetotal, but I've not had a hangover for 2 years, and
oh my gosh.
I
And that
absolutely, I
that
love
sounds
it.
amazing. That
I
sounds
love
amazing,
it.
to be honest. I know it's giving up alcohol is something that I really, really need to do and want to do, to be honest. But it's like it's the same for me. It's one of those things that it's so ingrained in our culture, and like it's such a thing to go out for drinks with friends and socialize in that way. But I know that I know, like you said with your intuition, I know that for me to be the best version of me, I need to give that up.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know what it's just I don't know what it is that holds me back. But I think it's probably uncomfortable. That's why.
I'd say one thing with me that's really helped, but as
Um.
well, my partner doesn't really drink. He's not a big
Okay, so
drinker,
that
so that
helps.
helps. And to be honest, I don't go out like loads with my friends. I don't have a big friendship group that goes out and drinks all the time. So that
Yeah.
helps as well. So for me, maybe it's been a bit easier, to be honest. My family doesn't really drink at all,
Right. Okay.
but I feel a bit I sympathize with people who have like families who really drink. They have a big
Yeah.
friendship group who drinks. They have a
Yeah.
partner who loves to drink. So for
Yeah.
me, I guess it's been a bit easier.
I actually wanted to ask you a question before I forget, and it's been on my mind since we've been talking, but if you could speak to your 11-year-old self and say anything, what do you think it'd be?
Um God. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Oh,
Sorry. No, it's fine, sorry. Um I think I'd just say to her like I think I'd just say to her, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't stop being so cruel. Stop being so unkind to yourself. You're beautiful. You're intelligent. You've got everything going for you. Do you mean everything's going to work out? But yeah, make friends with yourself. Don't be your own worst enemy and learn to love yourself. Learn what self love is. But at that age, no one talked about self love. Don't hurt yourself, don't harm yourself, don't sabotage your life. I think I get so emotional because I know at that age I was just going through it so bad. Like I was just so lost, and that's just when it started going really bad for me. And I sometimes I wish I could turn back time and I could make it different. But this is life. This is what life is. It's about learning. We go through bad things. And sometimes I feel bad for talking about the stuff that I've been through because I'm like, Gabrielle, compared to some people, you've not really had real tragedy in your life. But at the same time, I shouldn't dismiss what I've been through, but then at the same time, I haven't been through real tragedy. So sometimes that does make me feel a bit better about my situation. I think, come on, Gabrielle, like pick yourself up, carry on. Do you know what I mean? I feel lucky for for my life, how it's played out in a way, to be honest. To be honest, now, the suffering that I've been through, I say now it's my gift. Even those awful things that happened, it got to that point with that ex, with the prostitute situation. It got that bad that it woke me up. And I say, for this last 20 years, I've been asleep. I've been at the mercy of my mind. But now I'm awake. So now all I can do is make the most of my life now and make up for those years where I was just lost. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. Yes, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. No, it's not. No, it's not. No. Yeah. No, I don't. I think I've come a long, long way. Um, but there's areas now that I identify within myself that I still need to develop, I still need to grow, I still need to heal, I still get triggered by some stuff in the past. So yeah, it's continuous, isn't it, throughout your life? But I think that's the beauty of life, isn't it? That's why we're here to just keep growing. Yeah, yeah. But number one thing is you need to address what's going on in your head. What are you telling yourself every single day? What do you believe about yourself every single day? And how is that influencing the actions that you're taking? So, number one, focus to change that narrative in your head. Number one, you've got to start calming yourself, whether it's Pilates, meditation, yoga, breath work. You can do exercise as well, but I think it's more so the spiritual things that work. So like the yoga, Pilates, breath work, meditation. Start calming your body. In this society now, we're stressed out all the time. Do you mean even going on Instagram, that triggers you, that stresses you out. You've got to, and that just causes these thoughts constantly. And it adds fuel to the flames of this narrative in your head. So calm your body, and that'll start to calm your mind. It'll start to change the narrative, and start to do journaling every day as well. But that's the number one piece of advice I can give. You've got, if you're suffering right now in life, it's because you're at the mercy of what's going on in your head. And you need to be able to move into that observer role where you realize you're not your thoughts. You realize these thoughts, they'll come and go like clouds in the sky, they'll come and go. So when you have a negative thought, don't react. Don't revert to harming yourself. Just sit with it, soothe yourself. Now when I can tell I'm a bit anxious and a bit down, I'll do my meditation, I'll do my journaling, I'll cook myself a healthy meal, I'll be extra kind to myself. Be kind to yourself. That's the motto that I live by now. When I have a thought, when I'm taking action, am I being kind to myself? Is this being kind? Am I being my own best friend? And if not, 9 times out of 10, I don't do it. Obviously, sometimes I might slip up, but yeah, be kind to yourself and address that narrative in your head, and that will honestly change your life. But you've got to take action. It's not going to change by itself. You've got to take action. You've got to hold yourself accountable, remind yourself every single day, and then it'll come naturally. Yeah, 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 mm, yeah, yeah, mm, yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, but it is. It's so bad. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I've started actually sharing my story this last year. So my Instagram page is GLT underscore don't give up on love. It's all one word. I might need to change this name because it's a bit complicated. But yeah, it's GLT underscore don't give up on love, all one word. So yeah, people can follow me on there. But yeah, on there I just share all different topics like mental health, um, eating disorders, skin picking disorder, stuff about my breast explant, just everything that's been going on in my life. I share on there, just helpful advice for people. Oh, thank you. I just want to say thank you to you as well, Emily. Thank you so much for taking a chance on me and let me on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation so much. Thank you.